Narayan Hari. Hello students. Students, the topic of today's class is social life or society of the later Vedic age, the age from 1000 BC to 600 BC. And in the last video, we had discussed about the social life of the early Vedic age, that was from 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Here we are going to discuss the society of the later Vedic age. In the early Vedic age, I told you people that there was the joint family system was there in the early Vedic age, and that continued in the later Vedic age. Why the joint family system was there? Because of the agricultural production, and in the agriculture production operation we need more and more number of people. That's why there was a joint family system. Second is that it was a tribal society, and they worked for cows, and here they worked for territories. Here the tribal people, the Vedic Aryan tribal people, they used to war for the cows, for the possession of cows. Here they used to war for the possession of the territories. Then third important point was that there was no caste system. No caste system, but here caste system emerged. And four castes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra emerged. It is written in the 10th mandal of the Rig Veda that the Brahmans, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra emerged from the mouth, hands, stomach and feet of Lord Brahma respectively. As you know that it is written in the very important famous theory that is the Puruksukta theory. Then what happened here, the most important point in the later Vedic age was the discovery of iron. Iron was not there in the early Vedic age, but in the later Vedic age iron was discovered by 1000 BC, and this iron played a very important, a revolutionary step because of this discovery of the iron in two fields, in the political field as well as in the agriculture or the economical field also. What happened? Because of the discovery of the iron, Aryans were able to manufacture more and more advanced and sophisticated weapons which the kings used in order to defeat the other rulers, and that was the sort of imperialism also. Just take the example, if there were two kings, King A and B. A defeated the King B, and after defeating B, the whole area of B would emerge into the area of the A, and that was the imperialism, and that could take place only because of the discovery of the iron, by which Aryans were able to make sophisticated, developed and advanced weapons. And same happened in the agricultural field also. It is written in the Veds that because of the agriculture, the Aryans, because of the discovery of the iron, Aryans were able to make such large plows which were pulled even by the 24 oxen at a particular time. The 24 oxen when were pulling a particular plow, it means the size of the plow was very much large, and when the size of the plow, hal jisko bolte hain, was very much large, it means production was also very much large as compared to the early Vedic age when iron was not there. So that resulted in what? That resulted in surplus production. That resulted in what? That was the surplus production. And surplus production means that now the farmers were producing crops in such a large quantity which was much more than sufficient for the entire community. Because the people of the entire community were now, they were divided. Some goes for the protection of the community, some go for teaching and preaching the community, and some for the crop production and trades. And rest, that was the Shudra, their job was to serve the rest of the three. So that is the surplus production, and that surplus production took place because of the iron. Not only in the agricultural field but in other jobs and professions also, people started producing their particular products in such a large quantity that was more than sufficient for the entire community. अब entire community से बहुत ज़्यादा production हो रहा था, तो उस production को वो कहाँ sell करेंगे? That was a problem. So that is why, because of these surplus goods, they started going far off places in search of the markets. और इस तरह से, and that was the concept not only of one particular tribe, all the tribes, and there were countless tribes, And that's why the people with their particular products started going from one place to another in search of the customers, in search of the consumers to whom they could sell their products. And that's how the markets emerged. And with the passage of time, large towns and cities also emerged. So all this took place in the later Vedic age society because of the discovery of the iron. Then the another important aspect what we have to discuss here is that took place in the later Vedic age people society was that with the passage of time, particularly from 1000 onwards, a sort of competition emerged among the Brahmins and the Kshatriya. A sort of competition. Brahmins और Kshatriyas के बीच में एक competition feelings आने लग गई. They were both were considering that they were superior as compared to the other. It was the Brahmins who used to perform the religious sacrifices, ceremonies, prayers for the victory of the Kshatriyas or for the victory of the kings. That's why the Kshatriyas or the kings used to give respect to the Brahmins, because Brahmins used to perform the prayers for their victory. So that's why the important place, the Brahmins occupied the first place in the society, because they were the teachers also, they were the preachers also, who used to preach the Veds, who used to preach the religion, and who used to teach the peoples also. So that's why the important place was occupied by the Brahmins, and second place was of the Kshatriya. But with the passage of time, when the Kshatriyas started having more and more area because of the imperialism, because of the iron, they were able to make more sophisticated, developed and advanced tools. Advanced weapons were there, and that is why a standing army, now in the later Vedic age there was a standing army also, and with that standing army they started increasing their area of influence, and they started thinking now that they consider themselves much more superior to the Brahmins. On the other hand, what we have seen, because of the discovery of the iron, the Vaishya class was particularly able to produce crops, and that was the surplus production also. And because of that surplus production, they become very much rich and wealthy person, and started giving tax to the king. And because of that taxation, the king was able to have standing, a powerful, a large army. And with that large army, they started defeating the other kings. And that's why there was, on the one hand, the number of the king was decreasing day by day. The number of the king decreasing day by day, and their area was increasing day by day. Just take an example, if there were two kings, king A and B, A defeated B, and after defeating the B, the area of B would emerge in the area of A. So that is why the area of the king was increasing, but the number of the king was decreasing. And the story that began in 1500 BC came to an end in 321 BC, when whole of the country was under Chandragupta Maurya, who laid the foundation of Mauryan Empire in 321 BC. So because all this took place, the revolution in the agricultural field, revolution in the tribal polity, that all took place in this society, in the later Vedic society from 1000 onwards. So there was the competitive feelings among the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins. And one more important event took place during this particular society was that the Kshatriyas, the kings, were inclined toward the Vaishya, because it was the Vaishya who used to give tax to the king, and because of that tax the kings were able to maintain a large army, and because of that large army they were able to increase their area of influence, and that was the imperialism. And Brahmins started feeling somewhere neglected. That was done by the Brahmins. Brahmins started feeling neglected. Besides this, by 1000 onwards, Brahmins exploited the people in the name of the religion in the later Vedic age society. They exploited the people, common people, in the name of the religion, because the common people would go to the Brahmins in order to have the religious sacrifices and ceremonies in their name, so they could fulfill their wishes. So in order to fulfill their wishes, their desire, they would go to the Brahmins. And in the later stages, they would go to the Brahmins for attaining of moksha also. So it was the job of the Brahmins to fulfill the wishes of the people and to give moksha also with their religious sacrifices and ceremonies. And that is why they started exploiting the people in the name of the religion. How they exploited the people? Simple ceremony that could be done in one day, they started completing it in several days, and from several days to weeks to several weeks to months to years also. And they were, why the Brahmins followed this corrupt practice? In order to have more and more money. People were completely fed up of that type of practices, and they started looking some another religion, because that was the rise, and that's why there was the rise of Jainism and Buddhism, because in Jainism and Buddhism none of the corrupt practices was being followed which was being followed in the Brahmanism. All these events took place in the later Vedic age society, Indian society, from 1000 BC to 600 BC. Now we are going to discuss what was the position of the women in the later Vedic age. So students, when we talk about the position of the women in the later Vedic age society was declined as compared to the position of the men in the early Vedic age. In the later Vedic age, the polygamy was there, and it is written in the Maitrani Samhita that mentioned there were 10 wives of Manu. Besides this, the king also had four wives. Generally, the kings had 4 wives also. Otherwise, in the early Vedic age, there was the concept of monogamy. One man married, one woman. But here the concept of polygamy emerged, and kings had at least 4 wives were there. There was first was known as the Mahishi, that was the chief queen of the king. Second was the Vauta, that was the favorite queen of the king. Third was the Parivrakti, that was a neglected queen. And fourth was the Palgali, that was the daughter of a court official. So kings started having different wives, and that was the polygamy, when the one king married different queens. That was the polygamy emerged there. That's why we can say that up to an extent the position of the women was declined in the later Vedic age. And it is also mentioned in the Shakpat Brahman. The Brahmins were what? Brahmins were the literature of the later Vedic age also, in which that was the crux of the Vedas was written in the Brahmins, and the crux of the Brahmins written in the Aranyaks, and that of the Aranyaks was written in the Upanishads also. So what is mentioned in the Shakpat Brahman regarding the women, it is written that wife should dine after husband. It means wife should take her food after the husband. तो इसमें कहीं ना कहीं दिखाई देता है कि women की जो position है, she couldn't dine with husband, but it is written that she should dine after husband. उसको husband के बाद खाना खाना चाहिए. और ये भी लिखा हुआ है ऐत्रेय ब्राह्मण में कि a good wife should not talk back, उसको पलट कर जवाब भी नहीं देना चाहिए. और ऐत्रेय ब्राह्मण में ये भी मेंशन हुआ है कि daughter brings misery, sorrow to the parents. So it means that somewhere the position of the women was declined in the later Vedic age as compared to the early Vedic age position. Besides this, 8 forms of marriages also we have to discuss in the society of the later Vedic age. The first type of marriage was the Brahma marriage, Brahma Vivah, in which it was a duly dowered girl by the Vedic rites. जिसमें जो parents थे वो Vedic rites और ceremonies के द्वारा लड़की का कन्यादान करते थे. That was known as the Brahma Vivah, जो normal होता था. That was very much respectable, and that's why it was at the first place. Then second was the Devya Vivah, जिसमें the parents used to give their daughter as a fee to the priest. That was the Devya Vivah. Third was the Arsa Vivah, that was a token price of cow and bull in place of dowry. That was the Arsa Vivah. Third was the Prajapatya Vivah. In the Prajapatya Vivah, there was no dowry and no demand by the bride parents. Then fifth was the Gandharva Vivah, that was by the mutual consent, जिसमें हम बोल सकते हैं that was just like the love marriage. That was the Gandharva Vivah was also there. Then Asura Vivah was also there, that was by the purchase of the bride. Then Peshach Vivah, by the seduction of a sleeping girl or a mentally retarded girl, that was the Peshach Vivah. Then last was the Rakshas Vivah, that was by the capturing of the women. So these 8 type of marriages were there in the later Vedic age. The first 4 were valid and the last 4 were not valid, or that's why the first 4 were had very respectable place as compared to the rest of them. Then the education was also there, and when the students used to go to the gurukuls of their gurus or their teachers, there was the Upanayan ceremony, Upanayan Sanskar or Upanayan ceremony, and the age of the Brahman, Kshatriya and Vaishya was different. The age of the Upanayan ceremony for a Brahman student was 8 years, that of the Kshatriya was 11 years, and that of the Vaishya was 12 years, and it was not for the Shudras. And before 700 BC, there was no Upanan Sanskar for the women's also. But later, it was for the women's also. So that was the Upanan Sanskar. And why there was that age difference of 8 years, 11 years and 12 years from Brahman, Kshatriya and Vaishya, and no Upanan Sanskar for the Shudra? Because of the class hierarchy in the later Vedic age. It was assumed that a Brahman boy at the age of 8 is matured as 11 years of Kshatriya and 12 years of Vaishya. So that was the education system. So all these points, students, were the important points